The Executive Secretary of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, GREDA, Samuel Amegaibo, is questioning the affordability of government's affordable housing scheme and blamed it for its inability to break the housing deficit, citing the recent sword cutting for the construction of 320 housing units for the police service by Vice President Dr. Mamadou Bawumia. Mr. Amegaibo noted the estimated cost per unit of $140,000 is way higher than what pertains even on the open market. He was speaking at the opening of Group Indom's first real estate. Now, Nancy Addo was there and has more in this report.
Speaking to journalists after the official opening of Group Indom's estate, the Executive Secretary of Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, GREDA, Samuel Amegaibo, accused government of doing little or nothing to bridge the widening housing deficit gap.
It's very sad. If you drive around town in the night, it's amazing how you see people sleeping. Go to High Street, which is supposed to be our premium area in Ghana. Go to High Street in front of the Barclays Bank, the Standard Chartered Bank, Ghana Commercial Bank. People are sleeping there. Go and check. And it's so sad that we don't do anything about it, and we are getting it worse and worse. Our housing deficit is becoming worse and worse, and there's nothing in the pipeline to actually address it.
He questioned the amount government has allocated for the construction of the police accommodation units, which the Vice President cut short for commencement last week. He believes they are overpriced.
Government himself that is claiming to be doing affordable houses, the prices of their houses, go and check. They are higher than real estate developers who are doing all their projects without any support at all from government. Why is it so? It means there's some miscommunication between our approach. You understand? This project that we launched right now, he's done a beautiful 3-bedroom. He's selling it for $120,000. Go and check government-owned announcement recently for housing for the police. Obviously, it's supposed to be affordable housing. And if you check the costs for those projects, a simple calculation tells you that it's going to cost them an average of $140,000. And this is after they have gotten surely free land, maybe some support with tax importation for their materials and all this. They are getting all this support from government, and so their prices are higher than the real estate developers who are locally producing.
Meanwhile, General Manager of York Properties, Felix Ogra, has called on Ghanaians to invest in indigenous businesses despite recent cases with the collapsed banks.
You know, we have a housing deficit in this country. Some have placed the numbers, within the range of 1.5 to 2 million housing units. And to bridge that gap is not an easy task. The fact that, yes, we do admit that there have been challenges, banks, it's open knowledge. I don't need to come and, repeat what has already been put out there by the Bank of Ghana. But the good thing is that, we are not rejoicing over what has happened to the other banks because we believe that whatever happens, indigenous enterprises ought to be supported. They have dreamed, they have taken that bold step. Yes, they might have faltered, they might have tripped. We don't need to, hit them hard to remain down there. We need to encourage them to be out there.
Nancy Addo, Joy News.
The Auditor General says its outfit in the coming days will hit hard on heads of metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies who give excuses to escape auditing. Speaking at the Forum on Audit Recommendation Implementation in Ghana, the Auditor General, Daniel Domolevo, said the unavailability of evidence of expenditure at public institutions and improper record keeping is impeding his work. There's more in this report by Charity Emma Hill Bartels.
The Auditor General, Daniel Domolevo, in his remarks at the Ghana Integrity Initiative's Audit Recommendation Implementation Forum, disclosed that public officials who do not avail themselves for auditing obstruct the work of the department, and he intends to deal with such persons.
We normally put you on the alert by writing to inform you that an audit is going to commence on this date. Several excuses start immediately. We are busy, we have this conference, etc. And I want to put you on notice that Section 33 of the Audit Service Act called that obstructing audit and is an offense. And I'm going to hit some few heads very soon. You don't have the option. Once you're a public servant, if you don't want to be audited, you can resign and go home.
Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, James Kluche Aveji believes corruption at the district levels could reduce drastically if the Auditor General is given needed resources.
Because the Auditor General been doing financial audits and compliance audits, and there have been some challenges in terms of the accountability. The current areas that the Auditor General want to tackle by going into construction audit, procurement audits, and revenue audit, it means that no room will be left for MDAs to exploit and then be corrupt. So if the Auditor General is able to do all those things, it will be difficult for MDAs to be corrupt to the level as it is now. So,
Senior Research Officer of the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, Bright Sowu, believes MMDAs must involve internal auditors in procurement processes to prevent continuous infractions discovered in audit reports.
Internal auditors are often sidelined. It's almost as though in most MMDAs they are seen as some sort of a visible police that they need to avoid. So if you see the evidence from the institutions that really work well with their internal auditors, I've seen it work well in the Fantasma Municipal Assembly. The rules should be such that you cannot bypass internal audit in order to procure things or engage in other sort of finance within the institutional setup. And we need to be so strong that they have some power to be able to force the management to say, well, we cannot do it without involving these people.
The Audit Implementation Forum is expected to draw the attention of heads of MMDAs to the adverse effects of non-compliance of the Auditor General's report and also help show up efforts in the fight against corruption. Charity Emhill Bartels' report for Joy News.
Deputy Minister of Education Dr. Yao Osei Educhum says the number of schools designated by government to stop the double-track system will be reduced by next year. Out of the 696 schools, 400 schools have been chosen to begin the double-track system. This was revealed at the 33rd Annual Residential Congress of the Greater Accra Regional Students Representative Council in Accra. Kingsley Otu's report.
Speaking to the media after the Annual Residential Congress of the Greater Accra SRC, Dr. Educhum said the Ghana Education Fund, GET Fund, is implementing a financial strategy that will ensure the completion of stored facilities in all second cycle schools. Such facilities must be up to 70% completed to benefit from the GET Fund intervention. He said once this is done, the pressure on the 400 schools will be reduced. Dr. Educhum explained government is committed to making sure no child is cut off from acquiring secondary education in keeping with the Sustainable Development Goals on education.
400 out of the 696 schools are operating on the double track. And now we have also GET Fund is using a different strategy to do school construction. That is, they are doing partial securitization, which is they have projected how much revenue they will be receiving about 10 to 15 years, and they are borrowing against half of it to complete all buildings that are the 70% completion level. So if we're able to do that, then more space will be available in a number of senior high schools, and with that, we'll be able to reduce the number of schools that will be on double track next year.
Meanwhile, Deputy Head of the United Nations Youth Ghana, Komla Asumani, says the youth have a role to play in the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals.
The SDG must be a lifestyle. Whether you are in school, you are out of school, or you are a person with disability, whatever category of person you are, everybody has a role to play. That's why the United Nations Youth Ghana has put in place a strategic development framework in terms of how to mobilize the youth in the country, how to unite them, and how to focus them and mainstream them to understanding the principles of the Sustainable Development Goals, so that each and every category of the youth bracket will have an opportunity to play a role in meeting the Sustainable Development Goals.
Kingsley Otu's report for Joy News.
Second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbing, is blaming political interference in the management of the Bank of Ghana and the 400 million cedis minimum capital requirement to be met by all banks by the end of this year for the crisis in the financial sector. 7 indigenous banks have failed in the last year with fears others may follow suit. Though the roles played by the bank's managers and directors as well as the supervisory department of the regulator have been cited for the failures, the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament doesn't quite agree. Mr. Bagbing says the Bank of Ghana must necessarily review its minimum capital requirement. He spoke with Elton Brobe.
The number of banks in the country are rather too many. we were hitting 35. Now, with the collapse of 7 more, it means that we have come back to 28. Right. But I told him that the economy, the Ghanaian economy, is so small to be able to take mega banks. We need small to medium scale banks to be able to mop up the liquidity. We don't have a huge economy. And so to try to raise the minimum capital from 120 million to over 400 million is to give a policy that will be creating mega banks. Since Ghanaians don't have the money, you cannot get that capital in such a small economy. You simply opening up your banks to foreign capture. It meant that we are asking the bankers to go outside Ghana to mobilize the minimum capital. And therefore, foreigners will come to invest in our banks, take control of our banks. And you know, when your banking sector is captured by foreigners, they control your economy. And all of us will be laboring for the banking sector, and the monies will be repatriated outside the frontiers of Ghana. That is a foreign capture. I also indicated to him that these banks are collapsing under bad portfolios because government indulged on huge infrastructural projects, gave these projects to contractors. The contractors had to go to the banks for loans to execute the projects, and government. But what is even worrying me is that the current government itself is not even obeying the law that we passed, the Bank of Ghana Act.
In what way?
You know, for you to be able to objectively apply yourself to some of these issues, you need to have security of tenure. And so when you come and hunt out those who were lawfully appointed and made governor and deputy governor and directors, if you hunt them out and bring your own, it means that you are introducing that insecurity into the tenure of office.
Hello, good evening to you. Welcome to Business. The World Bank says it is committed to supporting Ghana in dealing with its infrastructure challenges. The country currently requires more than 10 billion cedis to solve the infrastructure gap. Currently, both parties are in talks on ways to solve the problem.
Ghana appears to have improved on its road infrastructure over the years. It is projected that the country requires about 10 billion cedis to deal with the infrastructure gap. Despite efforts to move away from financial aid, the World Bank says it is ready to offer the necessary assistance to help reduce the country's infrastructure gap. The World Bank's country director is Henry Kirali.
Ghana loses 2,000 people every year on our roads. So this is an important issue that needs to be addressed by everybody. And the World Bank is supporting programs. In Ghana, we have road safety programs, we have road infrastructure programs, and we have other types of programs that are all designed to reduce the number of injuries and fatalities on the roads. Traffic lights, poor driver behavior, poor conditions of roads, poor conditions of vehicles, all of these contribute to poor road safety. So it is not just traffic lights, it goes way beyond that to include several other factors. And it needs the commitment of the professionals, it needs better behavior on roads, it also needs the commitment at political level, at administrative level, and financially to try to come together to solve this problem.
Speaking to Joy Business at the regional workshop on road safety and urban mobility in Accra, Minister for Transport Kweku Ofori-Esiama believes that efforts being put in place by the government to deal with road challenges will yield the necessary results.
Within the African concept, Ghana, we are doing quite well, but it is not acceptable. Even if one person dies, which we can prevent, it is not acceptable. So the point is that until we get zero tolerance of road accident. Whether the 2 deaths a day or 3 deaths a day, it's not something that you should be proud of it. But we are coming from somewhere. That is why people are saying that we are coming from somewhere. We started from maybe 8, now we are 6. I'm sure per the 2016 figures, 6 people were being killed every day. 2018 is not something that you should be proud of. So I think that there's more for us to do. Though people are commending us that the effort and the commitment from the president himself is a clear indication that we want to do something about road safety. But I think unless and until that we get to the point that nobody dies out of negligence or indiscipline on our road, it's not something that we are going to rely on our roads.
The workshop is intended to encourage open discussions on road safety and urban mobility, particularly in areas where impact can be minimized for better results.
The aviation industry has received a major boost with the arrival of a new airline, Passion Air, to commence domestic services. The airline, which took delivery of its first 78-seater Bombardier-aircraft yesterday, is expected to begin operating on the Accra route this week. Commercial manager of Passion Air, Anita Corey, says the airline is poised to satisfy customers' expectations.
The first 78-seater Bombardier-8Q400 aircraft touched down at the Kotoka International Airport on Sunday afternoon to begin domestic operations this month. It will start with 3 daily flights to Kumasi from Accra and is also scheduled to fly to Tamale and Takoradi later. Speaking at a short ceremony to welcome Passion Air's new aircraft, the managing director of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Simon Alote, said the coming of the airline to the domestic space was timely, but cautioned the airline against lateness.
Apart from Passion Air, we will soon have other airlines coming on board. We have Baby Jet Airlines. They are at the final stages of certification. There is Air Futures flying as Unity Air. They will be on board soon. And Almighty Starbow is reorganizing itself to start operation. That makes it 5. Our Passion, Unity Air, Baby Jet, Starbow. We also far advanced with our plans to start a home-based carrier, which will also join the domestic market. So you can see that in the next few months, we're going to have a very competitive environment.
On his part, the managing director of the Ghana Airport Company Limited, Joanna Tefua, commended Passion Air operators and expressed the hope that the new airline will provide the needed competition and alternative services to the traveling public with connectivity and affordability in terms of fares.
Passion Air commences full domestic commercial air operations in Ghana at a time when we only have one carrier, Africa World Airlines, who's the only one doing the routes Accra, Kumasi, Tamale, Takoradi. As managers and operators of Kotoka International Airport and the domestic airports, Ghana Airports Company Limited is delighted and encouraged by this development. We are hopeful that this will provide the needed competition and offer the traveling public with improved connectivity and affordable fares.
The commercial manager of Passion Air is Anita Curie.
As part of our mission statement, which is to provide the best quality service to bring a memorable in-air and on-ground experience through leadership, excellence, and accountability. We will aim at providing exciting products to our customers in the coming weeks and seek the input of our customers in the process of making Passion Air the #1 airline in Ghana.
The move gives some options to air travelers in the face of the growing demand for domestic air services caused by the exit of other domestic carriers, Starbow, Fly 540, Amtrak, and CityLink.
So in aviation, a team of Chinese investors is undertaking feasibility studies at the Ho Airport in anticipation of establishing a pilot training academy and a maintenance, repair and overhaul center at the airport. President of the National House of Chiefs and Agbogbo Mafia of the Asogli State, Toby Apede the 14th, who led the team, indicated the initiative was to enhance the airport, the Ho Airport's commerciality, and to justify the huge investment made by government. 6 Chinese is in the country to explore opportunities in the growing aviation sector. The team, operating under the auspices of the China-Africa Development Fund, visited Ho Airport over the weekend. They are hoping to site a pilot training academy and a maintenance, repair and overhaul center at the airport. However, after briefing the team on the capacity of the Ho Airport, Togui Apede asserted the facility is suitable for the pilot training academy, but noted the length of the runway would limit the prospects of the maintenance, repair and overhaul center.
The only limitations we have said it, is the fact that aircrafts cannot land here in the night for now.
Yeah.
And also the length of the runway limits the capacity to take various aircrafts, which means that if we have an MRO here, some aircraft that require maintenance will not be able to land here. But of course, we are happy that it's supposed to be a first phase, meaning lengthening of the runway is a possibility. Okay. The provision of lights on a runway to facilitate night operations is also a possibility.
He was optimistic the pilot training academy, when established, would contribute to driving development and economic growth in the Volta region.
On the possibility, the prospects. Because you see, when we have a pilot training school here, it will bring people from all over Africa. That's number one. Okay? It means it will provide jobs also for our people. It will put Ho virtually on the global aviation map. That is very important. As one of the few, airports that have a pilot training school. Then additionally, it will inspire a lot of our people as they see that they have a pilot training school here. They see the training flights going in and out of this place. Okay, and we can also foster some collaboration with the schools in the area, like Ho University. More especially when we're able to do an MRO here. Okay. The first priority is the academy for training pilots. Second is the facility for maintaining and repairing and overhauling aircraft. But these guys are very interested in all of this. So it depends upon, having to work with them to assess the potential for locating these kind of facilities here.
In short, you don't want it to be a white elephant.
So what are the we want to make sure that this place becomes exactly.
So what are the prospects of
The Ho Airport is situated on the 1,500-acre land off the Ho Aflao Road, about 10 minutes drive out of Ho. It is designed to receive relatively smaller aircraft for domestic services. Construction works have been completed on the $25 million facility, which has a 1.6-kilometer airstrip, a taxiway, an apron, a perimeter fence, 2 parking bays, terminal building, and an air traffic control tower. And that's all in business for now. Many thanks for watching. My name is Emmanuel Apuaji. Have a good evening.
The Public Relations Officer of the Ghana National Fire Service, James Kwating, says it is early days yet to establish what caused the fire outbreak that killed 5 persons, including a 3-week-old baby at Dansoman on Sunday. The baby, the son of the Dansoman Seventh-day Adventist Church district pastor, was burned to death along with his mother and his 4-year-old brother. 2 other relatives also died. Eyewitnesses say they could only look on helplessly as the victims cried out for help till their deaths. Maxwell Agbagba has more in this report.
Family members and friends of the bereaved pastor are clustered in a small room the day after the tragedy. In their grief, they find solace in the song, "My Soul Has Found a Resting Place." One of the pastors of the church will man up to say a prayer while also encouraging the other members.
The entire church, we are shaken, but we still trust you. Amen. So we are committing every moment between this hour till we bury the dead and thereafter into your care. Amen. Help us to know how to talk so we don't say anything wrong against you. Help us not to talk from our human selves.
It's very difficult getting the family members to talk to us. A lot of them are tight-lipped, traumatized. They are not in a position to talk. One of the people we met in there was actually the best man for Pastor Addo Kese. And then that man's wife was also the bridesmaid at the wedding some years ago.
We are working out arrangements to deal with the funeral. However, the office, national office of the church will come out with a statement that will provide whatever information you need officially at appropriate time. We ask that you pray for the family. The church is collaborating with both sides of the family of the funeral, that is the lady's family and the pastor's family.
We've had personnel from the Ghana National Fire Service visiting to assess the structure this morning. The leadership of the church has also been here. We are told that they are currently locked up in a meeting to discuss the way forward. But one of the mysteries of the Inferno is this structure that was not touched by the fire. I've been talking to one of its occupants.
My mom screaming that there's fire, so we should come out. When we got out, all we heard was people screaming. So we started calling the fire service. They were not answering. So I went to the junction to get a taxi to the fire service station at Dansuman here. But when we got here with the fire service, the people were already dead. We heard them screaming around 5:40 something, 5:45 there. That's when we heard them screaming. We heard the woman screaming and then we heard the kids, but you could hear the children louder. They were screaming, they were really crying.
Public Relations Officer of the Ghana National Fire Service, James Quarten, speaking on the pulse, says though they still do not know the cause of the inferno, they have some leads.
We have not been able to complete our investigations. So we are still at the closing stages of the investigation. So we'll be able to give you, after the investigative team bring their report.
Let's do some politics now. And greed and neglect of hard-working members of the National Democratic Congress were responsible for the electoral defeat of the NDC in the 2016 general election. That's the verdict of the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin. The Member of Parliament for Nadoli Kaleo tells Joy News leadership at the time either failed to listen or ignored key recommendations that could have saved the situation. Mr. Bagbin, who is currently touring parts of the country to whip up support for his presidential ambition, tells my colleague Elton Browe the rank and file of the party at the grassroots is still grieving that their sacrifice and loyalty was taken for granted. He is confident of winning the upcoming primaries because he has what it takes to make it up to the people.
Well, you know, we as a party established the Professor Kwesi Bochwe Committee. I happen to be a member of the committee, and the committee toured the whole region. For some good reason, I couldn't tour because I had to be in Parliament. But the report of the committee is revealing. For good reason, we decided that that report was not for the public. Why so? It is for NDC. That is an NDC committee. Okay. And so you get the report, you submit it to the party. The party then decides on how to handle the report. It happened in the MPP too. When they were in opposition, they also established a committee. They did the report. It wasn't published. It's a global thing. It's not only in Africa. Any party losing hold of government and going to opposition, that's a scientific dipstick to see where they went wrong. We did the same thing. That is part of the reasons why we lost the election. The neglect of the party, the rank and file, and the greed of a few people. And so we tried looking at it, and I, being around for some time, have a few proposals to turn these things around. So I shared that with the audience, and I think that they were really, truly happy, and many came pledging their support to me and would do anything in their power to make sure I win the flag bearership race.
Meanwhile, General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Ketia, has issued a strong warning to candidates vying for positions to lead the party to refrain from making disparaging remarks about the opponents in the upcoming National Congress. Mr. Ketia said the party will not hesitate to drag any candidate found culpable to the disciplinary committee. He was speaking at a news conference earlier on Monday. Kwesi Parker-Wilson has the rest of the story.
The opposition NDC has issued guidelines for the party's impending election for the position of national executive members. Nominations will be open from 23rd to 25th August 2018. The General Secretary Johnson Ketia, speaking at a news conference in Accra, indicated that applicants who wish to contest the position of national chairman of the party shall pay a non-refundable nomination fee of 10,000 Ghana cedis, with those vying for first, second, and third vice chairpersons paying 8,000 Ghana cedis.
The General Secretary and National Vice Chairpersons will pay a filing fee of 8,000 Ghana cedis. Then the Oga Kwata, that is the National Chairman. That one, I'm sure all of you can guess it. Where we have begun, the progression is at 2,000. So that will be 10,000 Ghana cedis.
Mr. Ketia outlines details of requirements and criteria for selecting national executives.
If you have been found culpable by the disciplinary committee of the party and you haven't finished serving your sentence, then you are not qualified to contest. And then if you have been convicted for any offense that borders on the security of the state, then that plays to you have problems convincing us that you are qualified.
He also cautioned prospective aspirants to refrain from making disparaging comments about their opponent, since that could land them before the disciplinary committee.
The campaign shall be conducted in a civil manner, devoid of mudslinging, political vilification, insults, acrimony, and rancor. Any person or aspirant who flouts these regulations shall be subject to disciplinary action in accordance with the constitution of the party. There are punishments ranging from caution, verbal caution, written caution, suspension for a period, prevention from holding of office, to expulsion.
Meanwhile, the party says it is currently investigating 3 alleged disparaging remarks made by some individuals aspiring to lead the party in the 2020 election. The General Secretary has been speaking with Kwesi Parker-Wilson.
We are dealing with it, but we don't announce publicly what we are doing about it. So about 3 situations have come to our attention, and we have initiated some process to deal with it. So it should be under control.
So, I mean, issues about Abambabin, John Mahama, Sly.
I have said that there are things that are better dealt with, not in the press. So we are dealing with those things.
So what are
and
these
I
3
don't want to. I don't want to.
Did the party,
I'm saying that
members of the party petition you?
No. We are also monitoring. We have a system of monitoring. So 3 issues came to our attention, and we have taken steps to deal with them. So we are confident that those steps will be sufficient in dealing with them.
So are these individuals going to face the disciplinary committee?
I have answered the question. Thank you very much.
You see, you are dealing with it. You are specific on facing the disciplinary committee.
You're watching Joy News Prime, but we're taking a break at this point to crossing over to the Accra International Conference Center, where President Akufo-Addo is relaunching a book authored by Professor Addo Fenning and is part of events commemorating the 75th anniversary of the death of Nana Ofori-Atta. The first, let's listen in.
As ours was a purely oral tradition, as if oral tradition could not be the basis of verifiable historical accounts. Time and the existence of Al-Azhar Sankore, and others have exposed this whole line of reasoning as essentially unhistorical. In spite of this, however, some insist that these early writings were not set out in a chronological framework to enable us fully discover and appreciate how we have come to be where we are. They, at best, provided some information on our earlier ethnic societies and traditional states, and were described as mere peepholes into our historical past and development efforts. Literary works by such as C.C. Randolph in the history of the Gold Coast and Ashanti, John Mensah Saba in Fanti Customary Laws, Joseph Casely Hayford in Gold Coast Native Institutions, in J.B. Danko in Akan Laws and Customs, amongst others, fell into this category. It was thus left to the new generation of professionally trained Ghanaian historians of the post-independence era to take up the challenge thrown at their forebears for nearly 3 centuries. Under the direction of the great historian, Professor Addo, then head of the Department of History at the University of Ghana, Legon, during the 1960s and 1970s, a coterie of young, enthusiastic undergraduates of history were offered scholarships to undertake postgraduate studies abroad. They included K.Y. Deko, author of Trade and Politics on the Gold Coast, 1620-1720. J.K. Finn, author of Asante and Its Neighbors, 1700 to 1807. Divine Amenume, author of the Ewe Unification Movement, A Political History. Kofi Afrifa, author of The Achim Factor in Ghana's History. A.A. Iliasu, author of The Origins of the Mosi Dagomba States. And Kwame Napo, author of Government and Politics in the Akwaapem State. Among those who were trained locally under Addo supervision were Francis Agbodeka, author of An Economic History of Ghana from the Earliest Times, Irene Kokoi Odote Nekwe, author of External Influences on Ghana Society and Culture, and Robert Addo. Today, we're here to relaunch a book published by one of Addo most prominent proteges. It is the first comprehensive historical study of the rise and growth of Achimeboakwa, originally published 21 years ago in 1997 by the University of Trondheim in Norway by Professor Addo. This relaunch is part of the events commemorating the 75th anniversary of the death of my maternal grandfather, the redoubtable Kojodria, Fredua Ajimai, the great king of the Achims, Nano Furiata I. In 8 chapters, the author tells the story of Achimeboakwa from its origins in 17th century Adanse, now an integral part of Ashanti, through its relocation to Banso on the backside of the Etiwa Hill under Nana Oforipenyin, commonly regarded as the founder of the Achim state, and subsequently to Chebi in the valley of the Brim River after 1727. He discusses, amongst others, Achimeboakwa state and society in pre-colonial times, Amwakwata I and the Basel mission in Chase State controversy, imposition of colonial rule from 1887 to 1900, Stool Lands administration, strangers and territorial jurisdiction, social developments in the 19th and 20th centuries, Eboakwa's economic revolution, institutional change and innovation, and an assessment of the impact of the European presence on Achimabwakwa. We're given great insight in the last 5 chapters into the life of Nana Ofori-Atta as a traditional ruler, legislator, and patriot. It is most opportune at this time when we're commemorating the life of Nana Ofori-Atta I that this seminal treatise should be relaunched. Just as Professor Dubois did for him, I'm happy to learn that Professor Addo is also mentoring young historians. I'm therefore awaiting eagerly the publication of an MPhil thesis titled Nana Ofori-Atta and the Process of Educational Change in the Gold Coast, 1912 to 1943, written by Frank Aferi, who received supervision from Professor Addo. That study, when published, will undoubtedly shed more light on Nana Ofori-Atta's considerable contribution to the history of education in our country. To the new generation of Ghanaian historians and writers, I say that you have a special responsibility to continue with the work of Dubois and his epigones, which recognizes the period of European colonization as an incident of our history and not its justification, and which establishes that the great continuum of Ghanaian history defines the determination of our people to build a civilization founded on the values of liberty, common humanity, and solidarity. The desirable conclusion of that history is the mobilization of our immeasurable resources to address our problems, discarding a mindset of aid, dependence, charity, and handouts, and creating a self-reliant, prosperous Ghana that will deal with others on the basis of equality and mutual respect. Addo study is a good pointer for this new generation of Ghanaian historians. Accordingly, ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege and honor to declare Achimabwakwa 1700 to 1943 from Ofori-Penyin to Sir Ofori-Atta by Professor Addo duly launched.
Next, my name is Joshua Lai. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night.
This is Joy News Prime.